This is No One Left Behind, written by Cosmic Ace, recorded by Star1412. Chapter 7, Runaways. Summary. More children. Izuku is smart. I love this family. Toshi had been with them for almost 5 months now. His side of the room was slowly amassing more and more knickknacks that he had found. Izuku was happy to help him decorate with stickers and posters too. They even had glowing stars on their ceiling now. Both of them absolutely adored it. Hitoshi didn't have a lot of things to begin with, but that number was steadily growing. Izuku was ecstatic about helping with it. He fit right in with them like he had belonged there all along. Mama and Dad started calling him Hitoshi once he said it was okay. Toshi hadn't called them Mom or Dad yet, but that was okay. He was still Izuku's brother, and that's all that mattered. Mr. Yamada and Mr. Aizawa moved out a while ago. Izuku and Hitoshi gave them cards to say goodbye. They would miss their favorite babysitters. It was May now, and both were getting really excited. Both of their birthdays would be here soon. They just had to wait through June, and then half of July, and then they'd both be 6. While they did like the rain, summer also meant more time to play outside. The two of them missed running outside without getting caked in mud. Rain also meant that they got to have soup for dinner. Izuku liked katsudon more, but soup was good too. Hitoshi liked soup. He was adamant that marshmallows were still better, though. They had to go to the store to get things for the soup, though. It was raining again, but that was okay. Izuku and Toshi could race and jump in puddles. Mama stayed back so she didn't get splashed. The two boys were in raincoats, both All Might themed, while Mama had an umbrella. Dad had the car for his new job, so that meant they had to walk to the store nearby. Izuku was just happy to be outside, honestly. Though they did have to take a different route than usual. There had been a villain attack a few days before that had damaged the street. It wasn't a big deal, a minor inconvenience at best. Izuku and Hitoshi had fun looking at all the new things anyway. The trip there was full of jumping and singing in the rain. Once inside, Mama guided them to what they needed. They stopped in the toys section, as all little kids are apt to do. Everything was paid for like normal. They double-checked the list before they walked back out into the rain. There was nothing unusual. So why did Izuku feel like something was off? They walked out of the store, Izuku still feeling like something was wrong. Toshi and him got to carry some of the bags and be helpful. The rain was still falling steadily onto the concrete. It was peaceful, as far as most people were concerned. Izuku pattered along with the rain. They passed more stores and alleys. Then he heard a sound. Not notably in itself, just a harsh cough. People were bound to get sick in this weather. Izuku heard people in his class sniffling for weeks now. But Izuku saw something else, too. A flash of something lit up the shadows in one of the alleyways. It was blue, like the fire that came out of the stove, but a lot brighter, not naturally caused. He stopped, staring down the alley it had come from. Mama and Toshi glanced back after a minute, but he didn't really notice, too focused on listening and watching. Someone coughed again, and the blue light followed. Izuku didn't hesitate to drop his bag and race down the alley. He knew Mama said not to do that, but he couldn't ignore it if someone was in trouble. Heroes don't do that, so he wouldn't either. Izuku skidded around a corner. The light, whenever it actually appeared, was brighter now. He heard Mama calling him, but he kept running. Someone needed help. Izuku didn't know how he knew that, just that he knew. The alley ended abruptly. There were 3 brick walls, and then the entrance that Izuku had just ran in from. He tripped over his own feet before coming to a stop. When he finally looked up, he saw that he had been right. Tucked into the very back of the alley where there was the least rain were 4 people. 3 boys and a girl. All but one of them looked older than Izuku, and Izuku, he recognized them. It was the missing Todoroki children, the ones he'd seen on the news. One of them coughed, and blue flames erupted from his arms and throat like he was breathing fire. Dad did almost the same thing when he was sick. Izuku could feel the fire's heat, even from where he was standing. "Are you okay?" Izuku asked, lacking much of a filter due to being 5, even if he was very smart for his age. The 4 jumped, spinning to face him. Well, 3 of them did. The sick one stayed where he was, laying still on tattered and singed blankets. He lifted his head to look at Izuku, though, and his bright blue eyes widened when he saw him. The oldest, at least they looked like it to Izuku, stepped in front of her brothers. She was shaking. "Who are you?" she demanded calmly. "I'm Izuku. Who are you?" The girl wavered, glancing back at her brothers. It was then that Mama and Toshi ran in behind Izuku. He could see the 4 tents again. "Oh, hello there," Mama said, putting a protective hand on Izuku's shoulder. Toshi was hiding behind her. Izuku saw the exact moment when she realized who they were, too. The girl took a step back, an arm out in front of her brothers. Izuku wished he knew their names. The sick boy slowly pushed himself to his feet. His siblings didn't notice him until he was pushing past them. The 2 brothers tried to tug him back, but it didn't work. Izuku watched him closely. He could see burns when the boy stood up. They were an angry red that laced up his arms. Not quite bad enough to need skin grafts, but close. It would probably scar a bit. He was swaying on uneven legs as he walked forward. Mama looked a lot more determined now. The boy's hand lit up a wavering blue. The flames hovered in the air above his skin. "You will leave and forget you saw us," he croaked, managing to put himself between his family and Izuku's. The boy coughed harshly, and the fire extinguished. "You're sick," Mama said quietly, taking a step closer. "Leave." Izuku looked between his mom and the Todorokis. Toshi was hanging back, still shy of people. No one else was moving. So Izuku walked forward with a determined expression on his little face. No one moved an inch as he padded forward. The closest Todoroki, the one that was sick, stumbled back a step as Izuku got closer. "Stay back." "Izuku, what are you doing?" Mama asked quietly. He didn't take his eyes off the Todorokis. Izuku stopped a few paces from the oldest, staring up at his blue eyes with his wide green ones. His outstretched hand wavered. Before anyone in the alley knew what was happening, Izuku reached forward. The Todoroki boy didn't move, letting Izuku snatch his hand from the air. No fire appeared. Izuku looked at the hand he now held. It was burned, and way bigger than his. It was scarred. Even at 5, Izuku understood that these weren't normal scars. These weren't all accidental. "He hurt you, didn't he?" Izuku said quietly. He got no answer, but he wasn't expecting one. "You're running from him." "You're..." His voice faded for a moment, already hoarse and quiet as it was. "You're a smart kid." "Mama says I am. She also says it's not smart to be outside when I'm sick." The eldest Todoroki croaked a laugh. "And where would you suggest we go, kid?" Green met blue again. Izuku was determined, and he wasn't about to take no for an answer. The Todoroki suddenly felt like something inevitable was settling over them. Izuku turned to his mom, still holding the oldest Todoroki's hand. "Mama, can we take them home with us?" The alleyway was silent. None of the Todorokis dared to say a word. Izuku waited for an answer, while Toshi peeked out at the new people. Mama looked contemplative. Then the boy coughed again, jerking himself away from Izuku to contain the flames he was choking on. He wheezed, and began falling. Izuku was in no way big enough to catch a teenager. Not to say he wouldn't try to, but he would get squished in the process. Mama lunged forward and caught him before he hit the ground. She held him upright, and he leaned on her heavily. Izuku glanced over and saw the other Todoroki's tense, like Mama was going to hurt their oldest brother. "All right then, come along. An alley is no place for children, let alone sick ones." All 4 Todorokis jolted. Toshi walked toward them now, giving them a shaky smile. He gently took the girl Todoroki's hand, pulling her forward a little bit. Their other 2 brothers followed cautiously. "Zu adopted me too. Your sister now," Hoshi declared with utter confidence. "What's your name?" My name?" The girl glanced to her brother, still being held carefully by Inko. He nodded, so small that Izuku almost missed it. "Fuyumi. My name is Fuyumi." Toshi nodded, smiling at her now. He looked to the other 2 brothers then, tilting his head like a curious kitten. "What your names?" "I'm Natsuo," the second smallest exclaimed, happy despite what was happening. "Our big brother is Toya." "Shoto." Izuku and Hitoshi both nodded in satisfaction, happy to know the Todoroki's names. Toshi didn't let go of Fuyumi's hand, though. "My name is Inko Midoriya. These are my sons, Izuku and Hitoshi. As nice as it is knowing your names, we really should get Toya some help." "No hospitals," Toya rasped, barely standing by himself. "No hospitals," Fuyumi repeated firmly, loud enough so everyone else could actually hear it. "I don't care how else you actually help him, but no hospitals." All right, then. No hospitals. Are you all right with coming to our apartment? It isn't too far. If it can help Toya. Home, home, Hitoshi crowed happily. She be happy. Who's she? Natsui asked curiously. She my new dad. He nice and light food on fire when he try to cook. Dad like a dragon, Izuku added, grabbing Natsuo and Shoto's hands and pulling them towards the alley entrance. He lights the fireplace and he's warm. No cooking, though. He lights the towels on fire. That managed to make the three laugh, and in turn made Izuku smile even brighter. The sun might as well not have been behind clouds. Toya didn't laugh, but Izuku didn't expect him to. Not when he was currently wheezing as Mama scooped him up. She held him like she did with Toshi and him when they had to be carried to bed. Izuku and Hitoshi distracted the three siblings on their way home. The rain had mostly dissipated by the time they left the alley, so they didn't worry much about getting soaked. Toya kept coughing and accidentally setting his arms on fire. Izuku wasn't worried, though. Mama was good at dealing with fire. Toya's clothes would probably be singed, though. They made it home quicker than they usually did. Probably because Izuku and Hitoshi weren't stopping every few minutes to look at something. They were both carrying grocery bags, too, since Mama couldn't. So they had their hands full. Izuku held Shoto's hand, and Toshi hadn't let go of Fuyumi's. Natsuo held Fuyumi's other hand, and entertained them with jokes along their way. Izuku couldn't help but think they were already acting sort of like a family. Fuyumi was worried, extremely so. Toya was sick, and he wasn't getting better. So far Natsuo and Shoto had managed to avoid it, but Fuyumi could feel herself coming down with whatever Toya had. She remembered reading somewhere about twins always being sick at the same time. It wasn't until now that she considered whether it might be true or not. They had taken shelter in a dead-end alleyway. No one would go down there willingly, so they'd be safe. The three walls prevented most of the rain from getting in, too. Toya's coughs echoed, but they could only hope no one noticed. In this world, they probably wouldn't. Then a little boy appeared. A tiny little thing with a fluffy brush for hair and massive green eyes. He looked like the personification of innocent and friendly. He asked if they were okay. Fuyumi wanted to be nice to the kid. She really did. But where a little kid was, parents usually followed. She needed to get him away before that happened. Too late, she thought, as a woman, who was obviously his mother, ran over. Another little boy, with purple hair this time, was hiding behind her. They were doomed. Almost 3 weeks of successfully hiding from Endeavor only to be dragged back. Toya was in no shape to fight. Natsuo and Shoto were too young, and Fuyumi's quirk wasn't good for much in this situation, especially in the rain. Snow would just melt with it. Toya tried to defend them, tried to intimidate the women and children into leaving. It didn't work. Then the little green kid walked up to Toya without a trace of fear. Despite seeing his hand on fire not a minute earlier. He knew about Endeavor, or guessed. Fuyumi didn't know which was worse. This tiny little child had just dismantled every defense Toya and Fuyumi had with a few sentences. The purple-haired kid came and grabbed Fuyumi's hand after Toya collapsed. They went with the woman and 2 children. She listened to them when they protested against hospitals. Hospitals meant calling emergency contacts, and that meant being found. They couldn't be found, not after everything. All they needed was Toya to get better, then they'd be gone again. No matter what the 2 children said. Fuyumi couldn't afford to get her hopes up. Not when they had come crashing down so many times before. They arrived at a small apartment complex after a few minutes of walking. Natsuo and Shoto seemed to like the 2 little boys that chattered excitedly the whole way. Fuyumi found her wall start to crumble. Just a few cracks and fractures, but it was enough to shake her. She couldn't hope. She wouldn't. Too much could be broken if she did. The woman, Inko Midoriya, that was her name, put Toya on her couch and went to get something in another room. Her 2 sons dragged Shoto and Natsuo, and by extension Fuyumi, to the kitchen table, then ran off to get things to play with. Fuyumi took the opportunity to look around the apartment. It was small, but homey. The door stayed unlocked, something that had Fuyumi wondering whether it was intentional or not. The 2 boys, Izuku and Hitoshi, she remembered, came back in with armfuls of things. Coloring books, crayons, stuffed toys, action figures, puzzles, and a few other random things. Shoto just stared at it. He hadn't been allowed to play with a lot of these things. Fuyumi was happy he had the opportunity to now. It made running worth it. Natsuo immediately dove for the crayons and paper. He paused to make sure it was okay he used them first. Fuyumi swore Izuku's smile was brighter than the sun itself. Shoto gingerly reached into the pile and pulled out an All Might doll. It looked soft, and he held it like it was the most fragile thing in the world. Fuyumi glanced over the pile and didn't find anything Endeavor. Huh, guess the kid really was smart. Do you want to color too, Yumi? Natsuo asked happily. He had already drawn grass over the bottom of his page. Yeah, I'll color too. Pass some paper. They would just have to see how all this turned out. For now, Fuyumi would hold her family together, just like she always did. This was Chapter 7 of No One Left Behind by Cosmic Ace, recorded by Star1412. If you liked this, let me know in the comments, and let Cosmic Ace know on the original work. Link is in the description. Thanks for listening.